Hello everybody, my name is Steve Long, and we have a YouTube channel, Fixing It with the Long Bros. And I'm making this video because all the stuff that's going on in the country with the Black Lives Matter and all that, and defund the police and redo the police and change the police. I think all that is good. Every life matters, and my life matters, and your life matters. And so I'm thinking that what I want to say to everyone is what happened to me and my brother, Mike. We had business in Texas. And if you're wondering why I have this long hair and everything, because people who follow this channel, they know that I'm trying to rebuild my bus. And I'm not going to cut my hair or shave and then when it happens, I'm going to shave my head. And if Warren is here helping us get the engine started, he's going to shave my head. I don't know if he'll do it, but that's what I want. Anyway, we'll show that after we get the engine started. But back to what I'm really thinking there needs to be changes in the police. And I've been pulled over a million times. I've been on my knees with my hands behind my back, handcuffed, because I fit the description of someone they were after. And so I didn't fight them, I didn't cry, I didn't moan. I did what they said, and I let them run my license and all that stuff and let me check out, no warrants, no nothing, and then they let me go. And I've had that happen. But what I want to talk to you about is the changes I think need to be made in my life. My brother and I had a business, 30 some years down in Texas. We had our own businesses. We had ATMs. We had pay telephones. We started with nothing. Okay, through the help of some good people, Mike and I, we were working at RC, and I'm gonna try to make this quick, but to get to my real points, we were working at RC delivering sodas, and we heard that Reagan deregulated the payphone industry, the telecommunications industry. So we heard through some friends, some very wealthy friends, that individuals could own pay telephones. Well, we went out and got pay telephone locations, and as we were working at RC, driving truck, delivering to sodas to all these little stores down in Dallas, Texas. And so we made a bunch of contracts, but we made a business out of it. So we became payphone owners through some work of ours and some help with some very wealthy people. Actually, Bill Olden, the guy who started the private payphone industry. And anyway, we got in a mutual beneficial relationship with Bill. They became very successful at it and made lots of money, thanks to Bill, how he helped us. So anyway, things led on, and we started getting ATMs, air and water machines, all this stuff. And we made some good money for many years in the 90s up to the 2000s. And then we heard that people were, I was in a convenience store with a friend of ours, and he said, this is what you guys should do. You should put these, like they called them 8-liners, machines in a business. And because that's what we were doing. And we were in all these stores and everything, and we had ATMs and stuff in them, and he said, you should do this. And I said, there's no way that's legal. Gambling is legal in these stores. He said, well, they just give you gasoline and they give a candy bar, anything under $5 items, increments, you could do it. And so I started looking into it, and I didn't believe it, but we bought some. We went to a I don't know what it was called,
Outlet.
some kind of an outlet where they were selling all kinds of stuff. And so we went down there and we started buying some of these machines that people could play and win non-cash novelty items. Is the way that we started buying those things and started putting them in convenience stores, which was fine and it worked really good. But everybody, when we put them in there, then people would, the owners of the store would say, "Why should I have you guys in there? Let's do our own." So anyway, make a long story short, we decided to do what they had game rooms around Dallas, Fort Worth area, and all of Texas. I wonder if you can hear me okay. So anyway, we had payphone telephones, ATMs, air and water machines, crane machines, vacuums. We had all that stuff in a lot of locations. And the guy suggested we do the what they called 8-liners. And so we decided instead of working through the convenience stores, because it was just hard thing to do, because we'd make them a lot of money and then they'd say they didn't need us, and so they'd get rid of us, or it was a fight. And we decided to do our own game room after seeing that the business worked real well. And so we decided to, and there was a lot of money to be made, we decided to do our own game room. And we decided that, so we checked into it and we found the penal code, and we studied the penal code. We went to our attorneys, and they said, "Looks like you can do it this way, and here's what everybody else is doing." They're giving they were giving gift certificates to the mall and stuff like that. So we gave $5 gift certificates away, and we opened up a business, and then we opened up another one where it was so super busy. And what happened was, in that super busy location, that we had the sheriff department hired to patrol our parking lot. So we were paying the sheriff department money to do this. And then through the sheriff department busted a game room for paying cash. Or no, they were giving the gift certificates too. And $5 gift certificates to, like, the malls and stuff like that in Arlington and in Irving and all, in all the malls. And so people could win off their, in $5 increments, they could win and go to the mall and change it in for a hat or whatever, as long as it was under $5. Well, the sheriff busted these guys and took them to court, and I read the transcripts. And the transcripts, they asked the guy, is these gift certificates the same as paying cash? And the guy said yes. So they said, "It's same as paying cash in your opinion?" And the guy said yes. So he was guilty. Of course he was guilty. He thought he was paying cash. So the sheriff department sent out notices to everybody that had game rooms that they would no longer be patrolling their parking lots, because this guy was found guilty of paying cash, and they deemed the certificates as paying cash, even though it was $5 increments, even though Billy Bob was doing the same thing, but actually giving bigger items than $5. And so we shut down. But in their item that they sent to everybody, their notice, they said that there was a way to do it and it wasn't illegal. And they said that, consult your attorneys and consult. They said there was a way to do it, but they weren't gonna tell us how to do it. That was in their letter. So we shut down. So we went to our attorneys and we developed with our attorneys and with the actual Greg Abbott. I think he was the attorney for all the state of Texas, the Attorney General for the state of Texas. A friend of ours, Carl, he helped develop a independent contractor agreement with the Attorney General of Texas. And so Carl said, here, do this. Start this contract with people who come and play there, and you should be okay. I mean, the way we did it. And so what we did is what we started doing is we had our players, we had a store of all $5 items, just like a convenience store did. But we didn't sell gas or anything like that. So we had a store with $5 items in it. And we hired people to go get the gifts that people wanted for their winnings, their $5 little items. Instead of us just having a whole store full of stuff, we put a $5 items, they went and bought $5 items at the store, what people wanted, what they actually wanted. And then we hired people to go get those items, which became quite a big deal because we got quite busy and was bringing in a lot of customers, and I had a lot of people coming in. And so we decided with the independent contractor agreement, why not hire the players to go get what they wanted with their own money, bring back the receipt, and we'd reimburse them, just like we were doing with the people we hired to go get the stuff and bring it back to our store, and then we'd distribute it to the people. So we decided, let's hire them with an independent contractor agreement, and they can go and get their own stuff and then bring the receipt to us, proof that they bought it, and then we'd reimburse them the money they spent at the store for a Coke, or for even if they went and got gasoline, we'd reimburse them for their gasoline, because each gallon was $1.25 a gallon back then, whatever that was. So anyway, that's what we did. And so when we opened back up, started contacting the sheriff department and saying, hey, listen, we want you guys to come out and check our business out, because we don't want to I'm gonna regress a little bit. That's true. We started contacting them, but they would never call us back or anything. We just would talk to the people down there and say we wanted to talk to D. Anderson, and nothing ever happened. So we started going to the DA. We went to the DA. We went to the Judge Vandergriff. He was a senator in the state of Texas for a while. And we went to him, and we tape recorded these conversations. We've got them. We've got them tape recorded. In Texas, it's legal to tape record a conversation. And each time, they all said, looks fine to me, looks fine to me, looks fine to me. But you're going to have to go to the D. Anderson and talk to him, because he's the one who runs the wind is blowing pretty good around here, and the tree stuff is... Anyway, and he's the one that would be prosecuting this if something happened. So go to him. And so we, as a matter of fact, when we left Vandergriff's office, down in the lobby, when we were with our attorney, by the way, and down in the lobby was D. Anderson standing there. The Sheriff D. Anderson was standing there. And so we went, my attorney and us went over to D. Anderson, and we had been calling him and leaving messages. And one of the phone calls was Mike's, and we got this all on tape. Mike said, if I can't do it correctly, we don't want to do it. So we'd like to get your opinion on how we're doing this. And so we'll come out to you, and we'll bring all of our stuff, and we'll bring our attorney. but they never would get back to us. So we went up to D. Anderson at the lobby there, and our attorney said, hey, this is what we are, here's who we are, this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to do a game room, and we want to do it legally, and we'd like your opinion on it. He said, that's great. He said, I never heard, you know, we told him we'd been calling. Our attorney did. And our attorney called, I don't know how many times, a bunch of times, but they never would return the calls. D. Anderson would never set up an appointment. So we went, and when we saw him there, he's not gonna start barking. When we saw him there, our attorney expressed that we want to set up a meeting. He says, great. He said, call my office. Yeah, that sounds great. Let's do it. And so we continued.
I'm gonna take him and put him in.
We continued calling after that and never heard anything from him. And so we were continuing on in our business, and we were doing well. I mean, really well. And it was a business that we worked hard at, and we were very proud of how we were doing it, and the people were proud of it, and we were very fair in our situation that we were in. And I was not there at the game room at the time, but the sheriff's department came out, and they said, we're here to, our doors were open to everybody, by the way, just like Billy Bob's was. And so they came out, a couple of guys came out, and my brother was there, Mike was there, and Mike took them on a tour of the building, how everything was done, how everything was going, and how the contract worked, and they said they were there to represent D. Anderson, and D. Anderson wanted to do a preliminary meeting before he set up a meeting with us. So Mike was excited about it, and so they said, oh, this looks great. And Mike gave him the contract, the independent contractor agreement, and said, here, take this, take everything you want, here's everything. So Mike spent quite some time with them. And so at that point, we thought, well, first, they said, everything looks good, but just, you guys are giving free sodas away and free food away, which we had free food all the time. And they said, just, don't give any free coffee away, free sodas away, no free food, because we think that's enticement. I know it sounds petty, but we think it's enticement. So just don't do that, and everything looks fine to me. So, but we'll give this, can we take the independent contractor? Mike, yeah, take whatever you want. And so they did, and they said, Mike said, if there's any problem, get back to us, and we'll continue calling. We'll call to set up a meeting. Well, they didn't answer our phone calls again. And then maybe a week later, or maybe a little longer than that, I'm not sure how long it was. If you look on our YouTube channel, Fixing It with the Long Bros, you'll see, if you haven't already, it's called Deep State. I think it was called Deep State Corruption. Yeah. And so we got a video of that. So after a week or two, whatever it was, I'm not exactly sure, and I was still trying to get a hold of them, and not knowing, thinking everything was fine, that they raided us. They came out and raided us. They had a warrant. They came out and raided us with a warrant, and just came in and took all of our machines, took our money, and I have videos of all this. I mean, I have videos of Sheriff D. Anderson and all the media coming in. I haven't showed it all because it really upsets us really badly, because we were trying to do it right, and we think we did do it right. So I know this is a long story, but it's okay. This is what I think needs to be done with the redoing the police and how corrupt they can be. because this is not right, what they did to us. They came out and took everything. They took our machines over, how much? About 500 grand worth of machines. They took out of the machines, and they tore our ATM apart. They didn't need to, but they tore it apart. They just, anyway, they took everything. Hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of machines. They took out of the machines. They claim they took 30,000, but on the videos that we have, I can show you all of that. And they took the money and they divvied it amongst themselves, the sheriffs, and having a great old time doing all this. Well, after they let our attorney, and in the videos you can see that we called our attorney and he came, and you can see the whole thing on our YouTube channel. It really is upsetting, and I get very upset about it. And it's just maddening what they did. They just stole from us. They robbed us. They pilfered. And it should not be legal in this country, because there was a penal code for it, first off. And Billy Bob's is still running today, and game rooms are still going strong down there in Texas. Maddening. But anyway, they took all of our stuff. So they were there 8 hours, just tearing everything apart and taking everything and holding our dad hostage. We lived in the upstairs of the place. They had a couple of different apartments in our 10,000 square foot building that we were running this game room in, and we lived there. And they wouldn't let Dad go upstairs, and he's 90 years old and sick and couldn't stand what they were doing because he knew the whole story of how it all went down. So anyway, after they left, after holding us for 8 hours in lockdown as they stole everything, we, with our attorney, went down the next day to file an appeal or file whatever we had to, and there was no record of it, none, that it even happened. And so our attorney kept trying. We kept trying. I think 2 or 3 weeks went by, no record of it, nothing, zero, not a mention, nothing. There was no recourse for us. We couldn't do anything. We couldn't find them. We couldn't do anything. It was just like, no record of it. Sorry, no record. What do you do? What the hell do you do at that point? Well, we decided to go to court. We scheduled a court hearing. So our attorney and us, and we had 3 attorneys at that time, and went in and said, our attorney says, Your Honor, and the DA's representative was over there. Not the DA. Ward White was the DA at the time, I think. And so we went up there, and they're laughing at us. The judge and the DA were like, whatever, and I'm sitting there going, where's my rights? Of course, I didn't say anything. So our attorney's going, Your Honor, we need a recourse on this. You can't just take people's livelihood from them. They can't, and nothing. We hear nothing. There's nothing said about it. Nothing. And the judge goes, yeah, what about that, Mr. DA? And they said, Your Honor, there's no, this is an ongoing thing, and there's no record of it, and there's nothing. We don't have it. And the judge would say, well, I can't hear nothing. There's nothing here. I can't hear it. There's nothing. I don't have anything to look at. There's nothing. And they're all laughing at us. Seriously, laughing at us. Think about that. That's horrible in the United States of America. So anyway, we leave out of there. Nothing. We did this 3 times. Different hearings. 3 times. Finally, we get to I wish I can remember his name. The judge, no, I don't remember his name. But the third time, I think it was the third time, the judge, same situation. They say, I can't hear this. And the judge and our attorney goes, Your Honor, how long can you do this? How long can you put these people's lives on hold where nothing's going on? And finally the judge said, yeah, Mr. DA, how long can you do this? And they said, it's an ongoing investigation, Your Honor. And our attorney goes, and he states some statute or something, and our attorney asked that question, and the judge looks at well, how long can you do this? Forever, Your Honor. 10 years, 20 years, it doesn't matter. It's an ongoing investigation. And so that's it again, the third time. That's it again. We go out in the hall, and the DA is standing out there. It wasn't Ward White again. It was someone representing him. And I'm sitting, my brother and I are sitting on the bench outside the courtroom, and I'm pissed. And the DA is standing down the hall, and they're looking at us and laughing. They look. I'm pissed. I stand up and I'm walking back and forth. I said, there's got to be something we can do. And our attorneys are just sitting there like, no. And I said, this is against our constitutional rights. This is against due process. Let's go federal with this. And one of my attorneys, Don Driver, says, that's a good idea. Let me look into that. So that's what we did. That's what we ended up doing, going federal. We started a federal case. So, to make a really long story short, over 5 years or so, we, without nothing, had to fight them guys and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on defending ourselves with no income coming in if we didn't continue on doing what we were doing. So we still had our ATMs out there and stuff like that. But we could get into that, but what this story is all about is I could get into how the DA called us. What, Mike?
It's raining.
It's raining. Let's move into the bus. So we had no recourse. So I said, let's go federal. And so at that point, our attorneys, you know what this cost. And so we filed a federal case, and the federal said they'd take it. And so years went by of the DA and us going back and forth, writing summations and stating law, and they'd say why they could, and we'd say why they couldn't drop the case. And the federal judge, Judge Means, finally, after, I don't know, several years, and us spending all the money we had fighting these guys because felt like we were in the right, and this should never happen in America, and that people their livelihood should not be taken away from them as a hearing or whatever is proceeding. And what they do is they take your life away so you can't fight them. And who can? Who's got the money to fight them? So anyway, Judge Means finally, after a few years, seemed like longer, but after a few years, maybe it was longer, I'm not sure, said, that's it. We're going to have a hearing. No more. Done. I feel like these guys have had their rights taken away from them, and we're going to have a hearing. So, good. That's great. We're going to have justice. I can't wait. So, it wasn't, I don't know, a week after that Ward White called us up and wanted to have a meeting. And so, we're excited. Let's see what happens. We don't know. Don Driver, our attorney, went with us, was representing us. So we go up into Fort Worth, Tarrant County, and we walk into this conference room, and the place was lined with sheriff department people in the sheriff department. Just the walls. I bet you there was 100 people in there. Don't you think?
Probably something.
And a big table, 30 feet long table. And it was packed. Everybody was around there. And there was a spot for Don Driver, our attorney, next to Ward White. There was Ward White, our attorney, Mike, me, and then D. Anderson, the sheriff, the guy at the D. Anderson, the sheriff who told me, don't you ever do anything in my, as I had handcuffs on, and he's leaning over the top of me, spitting all over me. He said, don't you ever do anything in my county again. If you do, he says, get out of here. He says, if you do, I'll take you to jail, your mom to jail, your brother to jail, your dad to jail. He says, I'll take your dogs and I will destroy them. He says, do you understand it? Your life is over as you know it. No man has ever spit in my face before that didn't get something out of it. So, anyway, I'm sorry. It's very personal to me. Even though that's been 20 years ago almost. They destroyed us without any recourse. So anyway, this man's sitting next to me. Sitting next to me like me sitting here and him sitting there at this table. So Ward White starts the meeting. He says, thank you guys for coming. He says, we want to settle this case. We want to make it right with you. He said, we told D. Anderson, the sheriff, to leave you alone because you were doing nothing wrong, and you came to us and talked to us, and we were trying to do it right. And so leave these guys alone. And he said, I don't know if he said, you stupid son of a bitch, or he called him a shit.
You know, he said, this son of a bitch.
He said stupid, I think. I don't know if he said stupid shit or stupid son of a bitch. It was something to that effect. And this stupid son of a bitch, let's say, didn't listen to us against what we said. And I'm sitting next to him. And I look over at him, and he's sitting there going like this. And he's sweating. He's going like that. He said, and Ward White says, this is what we want. We want to give you all your machines back. We want to give you all the money we took from you. We want to make this right. And our attorney goes, I don't think D. Anderson agrees with you there. And D. Anderson's leaning back in his chair, and he's slobbering all over his fat face. Oh, God. And he goes, and he's like, no. I swear to God. That's what he was doing. No. And our attorney goes, it looks like he don't agree with you. And he goes, I don't care what he says. We're going to give you your stuff back. He says, well, you guys, you and your attorneys, go in the side room over there and discuss it. We want to make a deal. So our attorney and us went in the side room. And our attorney goes, what do you think of that? That's pretty good. That's it. They're going to give you all your stuff back, give you the money back, and you can just go on from here. And I said, stupid me, thinking right was right and wrong is wrong. I said, no. I said, they had said that Mike, and it was in the paper, that Mike had run over a police officer, a sheriff officer, run over him in his car trying to escape, which never happened. Ridiculous. And I want to say something else about all this. The media was out there like there was helicopters. The media was out there. All of the media was out there. So it was a staged propaganda,
It's political.
political. There was a re-election going on, and he needed it for a photo op, I guess. So anyway, I said no. I said they have. It's not just the machines that they took. It's not just the money that they took. You know how much money we've lost in these? It was like 5 or 6 years. I said, easily $12 million. Easily, we've lost $12 million. I said, I'll take $12 million. I want a public apology by D. Anderson on the news. And I want him to publicly apologize to us because what they did to us. I don't want this to ever happen to anybody else in America. Well, we went out there and we told Ward White that, and he says, oh my gosh. He says, we don't have any money like that. We don't have that in the budgets of anything. He says, I don't know. He says, I'll talk to my guys. Let's see if we can come to an agreement on a settlement that both can agree to. He said, you guys go talk. I'll go talk to my people, and we'll see what we can work out. And we said, okay, we're up to that. So we go home, and I kept calling Don. Have you heard anything? Probably a week passed. Have you heard anything? And remember, our hearing's coming up. We're going to have our day in federal court. And so we kept calling Don, our attorney. That guy could go into federal court. And so I kept calling him, and nothing. Hadn't heard anything. No, haven't heard anything, Steve. No, haven't heard anything, Steve. So I'm sitting watching the local news, probably a week or so after that meeting. And I'm sitting there watching the local news, eating, having a Coke. And I hear on the news, Don Driver, attorney out of Tarrant County, has just made a plea bargain with the DA not to go to jail, that he would just quit practicing law in the state of Texas. I'm like, what? I'm like, what? What the hell? And so Don Driver has been disbarred to never practice law in the state of Texas again. Oh my God. I just got off the phone with him. What the hell? So I call him up. No answer. At his office. I call him up. No answer. On his private phone. I text message him. Everything. No answer. So Mike and I, we jump in our little car and we run down to his office. We get there and there's a U-Haul sitting out front. He's packing up his shit. He's loading it up. By himself, by the way. And I go in there. We go in the office and he sees us. And he's towers over me. And he says, Steve? I said, what's going on, Don? What the hell? I saw it on the news. He goes, Steve, they got me. It wasn't me. It was my employees. They were embezzling money out of people that had won lawsuits, and they embezzled their money, but they're blaming me. So I made a deal with them that I would not practice law in the state of Texas ever again, so I wouldn't go to jail. I'm like, I said, well, where does that leave us? He goes, Steve, I dropped you. You gave me power of attorney, and I dropped your case. I said, what? I'm in shock. I said, what? I said, what? You dropped my case, so I got to start over again? Well, I don't know, Steve. That's going to be your problem. I don't remember much after that in that meeting, but I'm sure I wasn't happy. I don't remember. It seems like I must have been just in shock, like jumping out of an airplane. Too much stuff going out in your head. So you just kind of blank out, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, I didn't have the money to fight them anymore. I didn't have machines. I didn't have money. I didn't have, so we were done. Hundreds of thousands of dollars spent. Millions taken from us. Now, does it need to be reform in the police department and the power they have? Yes. I pray no one ever has this happen to them. I worked 35 years down in Texas, worked my ass off, never had anything going wrong with me, never went to jail, never had hardly a speeding ticket, nothing. I'm a law-abiding citizen. Does it just happen to one race or another? No, it happens to everybody. There should be some kind of, like with us, we should have, if we had a business that was running by a penal code that they had, that Billy Bob's, by the way, is, as far as I know, is still running today. We had to leave Texas because that D. Anderson was on my ass all the time. He was after, we had to leave.
Well, they came back and took all of the stuff we had in the back.
Well, we still had machines and stuff that we were selling out of that warehouse, a 10,000 square foot warehouse. We had moved out of there and we moved to Texas, or moved to Dallas, but they came and got it without a warrant, with nobody there. They came and took 300 of my machines that I was selling without a warrant, without nothing. I got a phone call from a friend of mine that lived in Kennedale that said, "Steve, are you guys moving all your stuff?" I said, "No." He said, "Well, there's 3 big semi trucks out here with forklifts and everything." I said, "I know." I said, "No." It was the sheriff. After they got Don Driver and dropped a case, the federal case, he was not done with us. So anyway, should there be reform? Yes. There should be some, like we called D. Anderson, we went to the district attorney, we went to the county commissioner, Vandergriff, and we got all this on recording, saying we want to we want to do what the law says, and we don't want to be sideways with the law in any way. And if we can't comply and work like Billy Bob's does, then we want to stop, because I've worked too hard for all this. I worked 30 years to be able to. Those machines were $2,000 and $1,500 a piece.
Some were $5,000.
Some were $5,000. And we had a bunch of them. And we had a business that was going good, really good. And it wasn't just, we just did it. It just metastasized, or whatever the word is. It just didn't happen. We worked our ass off to get to that point. And we weren't going to be doing something illegal. And we wanted to make sure of it. And they said we were fine. And then they came and got it. And then after the federal case was dropped by my crooked attorney that the DA and everything made a deal with, drop this and we'll let you go. Drop that case. Drop that federal case and we'll let you go. That doesn't sound bad to anybody. You wouldn't want it happening to you, I'm sure.
The cops put their knee on the back of my neck.
Yeah, put your knee.
Took me to jail with no clothes on.
That's another story. So anyway, what I think needs to happen, because we went to the authorities thinking, well, how stupid are we? We'll just go and we'll make sure we're doing everything just right, because we trust the law. We have faith in our society. We will be fine if we go to D. Anderson and say, here's how we're doing it, and we'll be fine. What they do, they took it, and then they busted us with the information we gave them. And they didn't bust us for what we were doing. They busted us so they could get our shit. And they would have no recourse. So they took our livelihood. They took everything. And they took our attorney and busted him for something he was doing wrong. But they used that to drop the case, to get the case dropped. Because our attorney made a deal with them. Now, what should happen, I think, if reform is to be done, you don't need to get rid of the police, but you need to have somewhere that someone like us could go. And I know I'm not the only story in town about this. Our town, your town, everybody's town. There needs to be a place that you could go and you could say, there's a penal code for what I'm trying to do. And as far as I know, I'm doing it right. I'm doing it like the big boys, like Billy Bobs and stuff like that. Because there is a penal code for it. But I want to make sure I'm doing it right.
Chuck E. Cheese.
Chuck E. Cheese. I want to make sure that I'm not
Dave and Buster's.
Dave and Buster's. I want to make sure that I'm not doing anything that the law won't allow. So, a mediator. I want to get the mediator. I don't want to go to D. Anderson because he's very biased and he wants your stuff. He wants to sell your stuff. And they were doing that in Texas. We found out later that they would take people's stuff and then they'd sell it to somebody. And then the person they sold it to, they'd go take it again. So it's a big circle jerk. And you're the jerk. Anyway. So there needs to be a mediator. The forces that be, and go, before they bust you and take all your stuff, go to a table and sit down with a D. Anderson Sheriff Department. Sit down, you and the Sheriff Department, and maybe a mediator or an attorney or something that represents the government. Someone that could be impartial. And go, yeah. Here's what we got. Well, here's what we got. This is how we're wanting to do it. D. Anderson, do you have a problem with that? Well, if so, why can Billy Bob's do it, but not give away $5 gifts and give away a $1,500, $2,000 saddle? How can that happen when they're playing slot machines? The video we have of the deep state corruption, that's in there. Of us as 20 years ago, younger people, younger white men going and seeing, why can they run this and we can't? What's going on? So there needs to be a mediator. And if D. Anderson says no, and here's why, and maybe an attorney for the DA or something is sitting there and goes, like they said in that meeting, leave them alone. They're not doing anything wrong. They're just doing what Billy Bob's is doing. Leave them alone. But he goes and does it so he can steal your stuff and sell it. So if you sit down with a mediator and you sit down with D. Anderson and you sit down with your attorney and you sit down with the powers that be and you're sitting there and they go, well, let us review this, say D. Anderson with his attorney, and we'll get back to you. Just like they told us. If there's any problem, we'll have D. Anderson get back to you. Well, D. Anderson got back to us and stole all our shit. But they couldn't steal your stuff without saying, hey, if you don't shut it down, if you don't comply to these rules that we're setting forth here, then we have no choice but to come in and bust you and take all your stuff.
But it better be
pre-warning.
Right. But it better be right.
And it better be binding. Well, then you could take them to court. You could shut down without them taking all your stuff, and you could take them to court if they said, no, you can't operate that way, and we're going to bust you if you continue on. Then if you don't agree, you better shut down, because you're not going to beat the law. They got the guns and they got all that crap. So that's the reform I could see happening. And I think that would make sense.
Well, they shouldn't have the right to take an attorney and threaten jail to him,
No.
and then have him drop our case just because he had power of attorney.
That would never happen.
And we need to go say, okay, if that happens, our case shouldn't have any effect to that. We were okay with our judge means, and that we should have been able to have that day.
Well, I'm talking.
We never had our day,
Mike. I'm talking about something else before all that happens. I'm talking about the reform that everybody's running around saying, shut the police down, no more funding for the police. That doesn't work, and that's crazy talk. So what I'm saying is there needs to be somewhere where you can take your grievance before they come in. I'm not saying that black people or white people are not getting hurt by the police. I'm saying they are. But I'm saying in our situation, it should be changed for that. That's what I'm trying to get at. That in something like this needs to be reformed and have someone to look at it. I'm not talking about what you're talking about is what they did. I already went through all that. I'm talking about how to fix it. How to fix it fairly. How to have like a mediator that sits and you talk back and forth with the D. Andersons and the DAs, and then where they can't, they have to get back to you, and if there is a problem, they say you got to stop or we will bust you. So you stop, and then you could sue them. You stop, but then you could sue them if you thought that was necessary. Or you might just say, okay, screw it, I'm done, which probably is what I would have done. Screw it, I'm done. I'm tired of fighting the law. I don't want to look over my shoulder, which I never wanted to look over my shoulder. So that's our story, and that's where I'm at. And you may agree, you may disagree, but I'm just talking about what could save businesses and freedom to operate a business and not be ambushed by someone that you went to, Sheriff D. Anderson, the DA.
Who has all the power.
There needs to be something that overlooks it, like a mediation. And then they couldn't steal your stuff unless you continued on. And they said, well, if you continue on, we're going to come in and we're going to take all your stuff. What fool would continue on? So then you'd have a recourse of suing them and going to court and have a jury or go to the federal courts if it's against your constitutional rights. We never got there. I couldn't afford to get there. I had to give up because they took everything. They took all our money. They took everything. So that's my piece. And that's where we were at. And I've had knees in the back of my neck for nothing. I've had on my knees and handcuffed. I didn't fight them. That's why I lived through it. And walked away in some cases with nothing happening to me. And I've had the police on my side when something wrong has happened to me. So lots of stories out there and lots of injustice, but there's a lot of justice also.
Well, I was told in the cop car they had handcuffs on me when I had no clothes on except for my tiny little underwear, and it was cold. They told me, I said, hey, these handcuffs are really tight, and when they took them off, I had blood on both wrists for where the handcuffs were. And I said, can you loosen these up a little bit? And he says, I've never had them any looser on anybody in my whole life. And I said, well, then you better be careful. I might slip out of them. He says, if you do, it'll be the last thing you ever do. And I said, the last thing? He said, the very last thing. The last thing. Then they took me in there, and they put me in cell number 1, and it was little slab in the middle of the room, and I had to sit on that cold slab, and I kept going to the window and saying, "Hey, I'm freezing to death in here." And it was 8 hours. And I took the toilet paper roll and wrapped it around my whole body like a mummy. And then everybody was laughing at me when I went out the door.
Yeah.
You think I was
That's another story, Mike.
treated good? No, I wasn't.
That's another story. This is very emotional for us. So people who wonder how we could have the money to do our bus and the time to do it, that's how. That's enough.
I came from the mud. There's dirt on my hands. Strong like a tree. There's roots where I stand. Oh, I've been running from the law. Hope they won't shoot me down soon. They sing on a sleepless night. Try to catch me howling at the moon.